currently live in Lake Worth, Florida, but I was born in Coral Gables, so I am a Floridian. I don't know if I'm a cracker, but I'm a Floridian. Sand between my toes. But I grew up, my dad was a lawyer in Miami and then felt a calling to the ministry, so he went to New Jersey and went to Princeton Seminary. So that was my first place I lived, and then his first church was in Ohio. So I grew up in Ohio, and then when my dad decided to come back to Florida, I came with him when I had just graduated from high school. But I was young and in love, and I came back up to Ohio and got married for my first marriage, and lived up there for a little while, and then eventually found my way back down here, and then after divorcing went to school, and I studied music, and then very quickly realized I didn't have enough to study music. I can sing, but I'm not a musician. And then I switched to theater, and then I got my AA over in Fort Myers at Edison Community College then, and then moved on to Florida State where I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts, and went briefly up to New Jersey to study up there at Rutgers, but then decided I was ready. I was ready to be done with school, and I was an older student by then, so I was ready, and I started doing summer stock and lived in New York for a couple years. And then both my parents passed within a 2-year period, and that brought me back down to Florida, and that's 20-some years ago, and I've been working here ever since. So I've been in Palm Beach County for over, I think it's like 23 years. My first job was for what was then Theater Club of the Palm Beaches, which became Florida Stage, and in between Lois Pope Theater, and I did over 16 shows for them in the career of their theater. So that was my first professional theater. Mm-hmm. And then I did, of course I did summer stock before that, but then once I started working in Florida, then I never have stopped, thank goodness, and worked all over Caldwell Theater. Of course, if we say that, those are going to be 2 theaters that have closed, so it's going to sound like it's my fault, but I swear it wasn't. And Mosaic Theater also down in Plantation, but I've worked pretty much everywhere between Riverside Theater up in Vero Beach down into Miami and into the Keys, and also on the other coast of Florida at Oslo and American Stage in St. Petersburg. And Orville and I did the do last night. He fell asleep on top of me. I laid there for the longest time thinking maybe he's catching his breath. You know, he's got that emphysema something fierce, but... And he started sawing logs, and I knew it was over. There ain't no sorry to it. I settled for second best when I married Orville, but I was young and miserable, and he was away out of whatever I thought I was knee-deep in. You know, my mama used to say that time has a way of straightening things out. Well, Mama, I hate to tell you, but there comes a time when you realize that a peck on the cheek over breakfast, that's the closest you're ever going to get again. I've been very, very fortunate as far as working in theater down here. I have averaged about 4 plays a year, so that's good. In this day and age, too, you want to make sure that you're working because your insurance is wrapped up in how many weeks you work, so that's important, especially as I get older. But I have had to do other things. Certainly when I first came down here, my first show at Florida Stage, I think I made like $140 a week, and you just can't live on that, even 20 years ago. So I had to supplement with temping and working, you know, in a job. But I have no other skills. I don't know how to do anything. I have to act until I forget my lines or can't remember my lines because I don't know how to do anything else. But then, you know, I worked in the box office at Florida Stage for a while. I used to have a little side business called I've Got This Girl, which meant you could say I would do like Girl Friday jobs, pick up your dry cleaning or, you know, do errand running or, you know, anything like that. I used to help somebody in their art studio, clean up their art studio, anything like that. Again, it didn't require much skill. other than but that's, you do those things. Now that I'm married, that is certainly helpful. We have 2 incomes, so it's not as dire, but that changes too. So I'm always looking for something. There's more and more film and TV down here, which is exciting. I mean, I think there's at least 3 major series that film now in Miami, so that's good. But I'm not, I'm not the beach babe, which is on most of those shows, so like Burn Notice and stuff like that. So not that many character women. I've never worked full-time for a theater. It's just not, unless you do something else, like you work as a literary person in their theater or do other kind of work for them, nobody's going to hire you like that. And there's not, as much as we'd like to hope there's a company in theater, there's not, where they keep you on a salary or you work in every show. That would be my dream job. Something like it used to be at Oslo, where you would work in a company and you would have a lead in one show and a small part in another. But that's a rarity these days. So I've never made my living completely with one theater like that. I do better if I can focus on one thing at a time. But it's also great, especially if you're in 2 different theaters, because then you'd have 2 different paychecks also. So, financially it would be good. But in Florida, that's sometimes very hard. It's a very large state, and you can't just be in 2 places at once. So that's hard, but I have done it. And I've done it, usually when I've overlapped, it's been in the same theater. Because marriage is trouble. But trouble ain't the worst thing. I married a man that I loved, and I went through hell for it. And when things got better, he almost immediately died. What do you make of that, huh? A mistake? A tragedy? No. It was the most excitement. I can feel it right behind my eyes when I say it. Forever, whatever you want in this life, Aldo, you're going to have to pay big dollars. What are you afraid of, huh? You're going to get old. And things are going to go right and wrong and right and wrong, and then you're going to keel over and you're going to die. Anybody you really want in the meanwhile is going to be expensive in some way. There ain't no bargains in people. You ain't no bargain. Any woman ends up with you who's got a man who's going to compare her to his mother. And that's always a bitch. I like it when I can get, in the spring, start to line up for the rest of the year. But it doesn't always work that way. But I've always had my needs met. So I continue to trust that will happen in my life. But I do actually have been auditioning a lot in the last 2 weeks. I went to Orlando, Sarasota, St. Pete, Miami, Jupiter, West Palm Beach. There's been a lot of auditioning. This is just the time of the year for their general auditions. And you just put it out there. That's my job. Put it out there and see what comes back. Nothing immediate has come back, but it's sort of like depositing money in the bank. And you have to go and you show yourself. That's who you are. I would love it if jobs just came to me, and there was a time when some of the larger theaters were still running that I would get a call. I wouldn't have to go and audition for the role. But that's not the case anymore, and I have to go with the time. So I don't mind that. But there are times that you think, really? You don't know what I can do by now? But it's always a good excuse to show them something different. So I'm a character woman. I play a lot of different kind of character roles, so I can show them a little something different, something broader, something more small and fragile, whatever they might be looking for and not even know they're looking for it. So there's a big statewide audition next week. I'm going to that. I do that every few years to kind of remind people who you are. And I've certainly learned that administrations change dramatically over the years. So you have to, you're a product, and you have to keep on putting yourself out there. As much as I would like to just stay here in my living room and wait for the phone to ring. I was pretty then, wasn't I, Doc? You remember the first time you kissed me? Oh, you were as nervous as a young girl. You trembled so. We've been going together for about a year, and you're always so shy. And then all at once, you grabbed me and you kissed me and you said you'd love me forever and ever. You remember that? You said that if I didn't marry you, you wanted to die, and I remember that because I'd never heard anybody say anything like that. Are you sorry you married me, Doc? I mean, maybe you're sorry now, huh? You didn't know I was going to get old and fat and sloppy. Are you sorry you had to marry me, Doc?